Well, hello, everybody. It's time for us to start the conference call. My name is Ron Robinson, and you are present for the Nation Builder for GOP conference call. Welcome to everyone who's attending. Tonight, we're going to have something just a little bit different. We are going to branch out just a little bit, and we're going to present some training for you all that not only applies to Nation Builder, but applies to any political website where you're trying to stir up some activism. So, let's go ahead and move on to our agenda. We'll take care of some housekeeping, and then we'll go ahead and continue with our agenda. Hang on just a second here. Let me switch to the agenda. There we go. As always, I want you all to know about the Google group and the email list that we have, and both of those are on the web address that you see at the top of the screen there, theget.io/train. It might, being a member of both the Google group and the email list may help you. Also, on our main website, theget.io.com, let me just go ahead and go there. Pardon me, go there for you. We have a video archive, and we're adding to that video archive weekly, of course. And the video archive is linked right here in the upper corner of the web page, upper right-hand corner next to that orange logo. It's linked right there. You can get to the videos from there. Let's see here. And then, of course, you know, if you're webmastering a political website yourself, do check with your political bosses before you make any major changes implementing on your website. So we always take questions during this call, and what we do is we take the questions at the beginning of the call, and I tend to multitask, and I'll think about the answers while we're presenting the main lesson, and then we'll stop the main lesson early enough to address your questions. So let me just unmute everybody here and ask if there are any questions from the floor. They don't need to necessarily be questions. If you have challenges that you want to discuss, or you have an idea that you're thinking about implementing and you want to check and see if that's a sane idea that'll work well in digital spaces or moving from digital spaces to out into the real world, feel free to ask questions. The floor is open for questions right now. I'm not hearing anything. Let me make sure everybody's unmuted. Yep, everybody's unmuted. Any questions from the floor? Okay, well then we'll go ahead and we'll move right on to our presentation. What we're going to talk about tonight is building digital platforms for activism. And there's actually two components to building a digital platform. The first part is building the platform itself and some tools and some amenities that you have to provide to launch your online digital effort for your political activity. And then the other part is the human factor and turning the crank. And that's probably the most important of the two parts. One of the things that we see happen, and one of the things that I talked about with my boss a lot on several campaigns, was the fact that a lot of times we're equipped with really, really fantastic digital tools. But those digital tools kind of get left in the shadow, and it's the equivalent of bringing the horses out of the barn and hooking them up to your brand new Ferrari and climbing up on top of the Ferrari and snapping the reins and yelling, "Giddy up!" When if you realize that you're sitting on top of a twin-turbo car that could really do some high-performance moving for you, if somebody would just turn you how to get inside and turn the key, then a lot of times you're going to get much better performance. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So getting started with your digital platform, and again, like I said at the beginning of this call, this doesn't only apply to Nation Builder. This could apply to any platform that you're on. I think probably WordPress is the most common platform, and some of the things we're going to talk about definitely are more difficult to do on WordPress than they are on Nation Builder. And plus, there's some other programs like NetBoots and Aristotle and platforms like that. They're pretty helpful in moving you in the right direction. So a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is going to apply to any of those platforms as well as Nation Builder. So let's get into it. The first principles that we're going to talk about, like I mentioned a moment ago, is the first thing we want to talk about is the tools and amenities that we're going to provide. I'm going to take those in reverse order, and I'm going to talk about amenities first. Amenities are just the basics of having a nice website that's easy to navigate, easy to join. Even the most lame websites usually get these parts right. You know, they're easy to navigate. You're going to find the donate button really easily. You're going to find, you know, most of them come up with a blank asking for your email address. Just the moment you visit the website, the first thing you see is a big email address blank, making it very easy to join. Now, the next items we're going to talk about, like making your login easy to find and being more than a brochure and a browser. If we're going to be digital activists, we want to get our marching orders from the campaign website or from the county party website. And so that means we've got to have a login. And a lot of sites don't furnish that. Of course, Nation Builder, Aristotle, NetBoots, they all furnish a login so you can actually log into the website and see things that the general public isn't admitted to. And we'll get to that in a minute. I'll show you some examples. You want to be, like I was saying, you want to be more than a brochure and a browser. You want to be able to allow people to do some of the basic things like do a social media share to Facebook, share to Twitter with those buttons. And most websites, certainly more than half of these websites are touching all these bases. Some better than others, and some with more forethought than others. But the brochure in a browser is kind of harking back to that example I gave a moment ago of leading the team of horses out and hitching them up to your Ferrari. You've got more than a brochure and a browser, and there's no reason to leave the website owner or the candidate or the county party thinking, well, we made this great investment in this great platform, but really all it's serving as is just a brochure and a browser. That's basically all it is. We might get a couple of email addresses. So what we need to do is we need to add the tools and the human factor. And so let's talk about that for a minute. Some of the tools that we want to furnish someone, and most of these tools that I'm speaking of are things that you'll see after your website visitor has created a login and they're actually able to log in, would be a volunteer office page, which of course is going to have your social media controls and stuff like that, things where you can promote the website by clicking a button and doing a post to your own Facebook account or to your own Twitter account. And if your website's properly designed like Nation Builder and a couple of others, then when people click these social media buttons, they'll automatically be accumulating points so that they can be on a leaderboard. And what's a leaderboard? Well, let me show you an example. Let's see here. Here we go. Here's a leaderboard from a campaign in Arizona. And I'm going to scroll down just a little bit here. And you can see that we have our 25 most active people as far as doing things like sending emails and getting people to click a link to the website in the email, clicking on the Facebook and the Twitter buttons. In this case, these controls I'm talking about are right down here in the lower left-hand corner, where you can click to post to Facebook, click to tweet with a link to the website that we're on, share it on Google+, and then also an email, which you get a lot of social media points on a platform like Nation Builder for actually sending an email, because it's a lot more personal. And as you can see here, there's a gentleman named Kevin Dang who is at the top of the leaderboard here on Frank's campaign right now, Eric Crown. In the case of Nation Builder, the leaderboard is automatically updated. It's totally dynamic, and if Eric managed to earn about 29, or let's say 30, if Eric here managed to earn 30 more points by social media posts or sending out emails or getting people to come to the website with his custom link, then he would just, the next day, he would just automatically move up here into the top spot and move Kevin down to number 2. In Nation Builder, this is all automatic. There's plugins that you can get for WordPress that will do the same thing, and that can be totally automatic for you. But a leaderboard is a real nice thing to have for a couple of reasons, but the most important reason, you may have noticed that I actually mentioned the leaderboard on the previous slide under amenities, and it's to recognize people's efforts and to hopefully put you in a, stir up a little bit of friendly competition among your activists and your workers, and get them to engage in a little bit of friendly activism. So what else do we want on our volunteer office page? Well, we'd want to set up a space in Google Drive. There's probably a Gmail address set up for the candidate, so using the Gmail account of that candidate email address on Gmail is probably a good place to just go to Google Drive. You have to be logged into Gmail to use Google Drive, and set up a folder that you're going to share with your workers. And then in the volunteer space, put a link to that Google Drive folder so the people who have been admitted can simply go into the Google Drive folder and either leave documents they're dropping off or pick up documents that they're visiting to receive, and use the candidates or the county party's website as the main space where they enter the Google Drive folder that you're sharing among your work group. Google group discussions, we actually have that embedded in our Nation Builder site in the hang on here, let me get to the right website here. It's one of the cool things about using Google Groups is if I'm a member of a Google group and I have 20 members in that group, then if I send an email to the Google group address, everybody in the group receives that email. I don't have to remember to address it to 20 different people. Now here's an embed from the Google group for NB4GOP right here on your screen. And you'll see that we've sent out some messages. There hasn't been much discussion started yet, but that's certainly going to happen in the future as we gather more listeners and more people participating in our education here. The nice thing about it is you can participate either by web through an embed like this or navigate directly to the Google group in your browser. But most people just use it as an email major domo service. There's an old, this idea was originally taken from the idea of a major domo, which would, you would send the major domo an email, and then everybody who was a member of that service received a copy of that email, and they could respond and share their ideas with everybody in their group just by hitting a reply to one email address, and that's a very nice feature to have. So this can get discussion going among your activists and your activist leaders, and allow leaders to put forward ideas or requirements very easily without taking up a bunch of time and people having to remember to go pick up a document from Google Drive or something like that. So that's another tool that you would probably want to have linked in a volunteer office page. Another activity that you may want to put in a volunteer office page is a host an event button. Now this is something that's really strong in Nation Builder, but again, a lot of other platforms have this too. And what I mean by a host an event button is it allows someone to simply click an event, click a button that says host an event, and let them fill out a date and time and a venue, a location, an address where they want to have a coffee, or maybe a debate watch party, or maybe an election returns watch party, any type of event, but coffees and watch parties are certainly popular for political websites. They go ahead and schedule the event themselves, and somebody on the campaign staff will look over the event, maybe call the host and talk to him for a couple of minutes, vet the whole thing, and then they, just by clicking a button, you can go ahead and publish that event on the public campaign calendar or the public county party calendar. That can be a real productive event for you. That can be a real productive tool for you to get more people participating in your campaign, recruit volunteers and activists and stuff like that. It needs to be exposed on your website for a little while, and people need to push it. People need to mention it and direct people's attention to it. But once it's been there for a while, it can really gather in a lot of people working for your campaign. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't do, and I think this is a big omission, is they don't admit people to their online back office. When you get a volunteer to a certain point, you're going to be asking them, hey, follow the link into the website and, click on this and set yourself a password. And then they have a full login to the site where they can get to the semi-public information that's intended for volunteers. In other words, our volunteer office page. And in the case of Nation Builder, you would want to admit them to what we call the control panel. Now, you and I can all go look at various websites out there, and we can tell which ones are stirring up digital activity and have volunteers active and which don't. On the other side of that same coin, I'm sure there's some people on the call, and I know I'm one of them, because I'm constantly disappointed by how flat some websites are. There are some websites you can go to, and these are those brochure in a browser websites that I'm talking about, where you go looking for something that you could do to help the campaign online, and some buttons you could click or a form you could fill out that's going to advance your effort and help your effort right now online to advance the campaign a little bit. And if the website doesn't have those, you're going to lose your potential digital worker to another campaign. Now, what am I talking about? Well, let's go look at this example. Let's go back to the leaderboard that we were looking at a few minutes ago, and let's look over here on the right side of this page. And this is a pretty good example of where you want to start with a volunteer office page. Up here at the top, now this is Nation Builder, so of course you people that have used Nation Builder are going to see these familiar edit this page and your pages and the control panel buttons, because these are controls that are offered to people who have been admitted to the control panel. And then we see my personal information. So when I'm on this page and I see my name and my picture, I know I'm logged in. I know I don't need to go to the login page and log in. This confirms that I am logged in, shows a little bit of my links to my social media accounts, a little bit of my bio, and then right here it's showing how many social capital points that I've earned. And a lot of this, I'm new on this website, and a lot of this social capital I just earned today. So with 43 social capital points, let's go to the bottom of this leaderboard and see who's at the bottom. 39 social capital points here down at the bottom. So tomorrow I'm going to be a little bit up on this leaderboard. I'll probably be right above Carol Hageman and right below Robert Rue, because I have 43 points. So tomorrow when the leaderboard updates, I'll be on the leaderboard. Yay for me. Not as high as I usually appear, but I'm brand new on this website, so we're doing some stuff. Now the important links down here where it says supporter status on this supporter menu, It's showing that I'm a confirmed supporter. I have completed that task. It shows that I've connected my Facebook account, so I've completed that task. It shows that I've connected my Twitter account to the Frank Schmuck for Arizona Senate website. So that's done. I've added my email. I've given my zip code, and I am a volunteer on this website. I haven't made a donation here yet, but I'm going to in a day or so. We've got a good start on a volunteer office page here. We're actually going to take these controls and put them on another page. But what I would do, and as we develop this website a little bit further, we're going to put a few more links in here between above the contact button and under this make a donation button. We're going to add a few links here that are going to be helpful to the digital team, to members of the digital team, in staying in touch and being able to do things like exchange precinct walk sheets and spreadsheets. You know, campaigns run on spreadsheets nowadays, and so any digital worker or even the precinct captains or county chairs are going to be exchanging lots of spreadsheets. So we'll have links that are going to enable them to do that. We're about 20 minutes into the call right now, so I'm just going to stop and ask if there are any questions. Does anybody have any questions so far? Are there any questions that I could answer? Everyone's unmuted, so if you have a question, pipe up. Any questions? Okay, so let's go back to our tools slide, and that's what I was talking about when I was what we were just seeing on the page there at the Team Frank website was admitting people to the online back office. Then finally, one other thing that we're going to want to consider a little bit further down the road is webinars and conference calls. And it's a scary thing to do if you're the person on the spot for doing this, but webinars and conference calls are going to help you a lot. I would suggest that you schedule a weekly conference call at the same, on the same day at the same time every week, every week. It's one of the best ways to give the people the confidence and the confidence and the permission and so forth that you need to get them involved in moving a little bit deeper into the digital world that you're creating for them to help this campaign, to help your campaign, whether it's your campaign or whether it's your county party. I would say it's especially important for county parties to have their digital people or have a webinar or a conference call devoted to drawing people into the digital world, and it's really pretty easy. For 2.5 years, we did this on the Draft Carson campaign, and that was the main tool that we had visible to the public that allowed us to grow our volunteer force and volunteer base. Not everybody was on the conference call every week, and that's okay. People came to the conference call when they wanted, digital work is sometimes kind of lonely work. You feel like a maverick. You're out there doing it by yourself. You're talking to people on social media. You're tweeting back and forth with somebody. And sometimes you just need to have a way to touch base and know that, hey, there's other people involved in this effort too. And my volunteer coordinator is available on the call, and I can ask questions and get ideas for how I can help the campaign or the county party a little bit more. So we'll come back to this webinar conference call idea in just a minute. So now that we've provided all the tools and the amenities that we need to begin, this is just the beginning of our digital effort. Our tools list that we're looking at right now could change considerably based on what we learn on the webinars and conference calls, or based on what we learn from our Google group discussion by email and stuff like that. So, one of these tools is be ready for evolution, be ready for this to evolve. And the digital director or the volunteer coordinator may need to be ready to put additional tools and make additional tools available. So at this point, we've got our beginnings of a digital infrastructure where we can begin to help people do the digital job, and we can guide them into the infrastructure. We can show them how to log in. We can show them how to set a password, all this stuff. And if we offer that kind of guidance on a webinar or a conference call, then we're gonna further our campaign considerably. So let's go on to the next part, what I call the human factors. And I'm going to combine two metaphors here. We talked about the brochure in a brochure in a browser. Think back to the movie Field of Dreams, and if you build it, they will come. And so imagine that this guy wants to, that our protagonist wants to build a baseball park, wants to build a ball diamond, and he's got this dream. And so let's change that story just a little bit, and let's imagine that he finishes building the ballpark, he finishes building the ball diamond, and the bases are set out, the backstop's up, the grass is mowed, everything's looking real nice. And he gets back to home plate with the little gypsum machine, putting the lines around the diamond, and he takes off his gloves, dusts off his hands, puts his hands on his hips, looks at his work, and back there in the corn, you can see the tops of the corn moving just a little bit. You suspect, hey, it looks like somebody's walking through the corn, And right at that point, he goes, okay, let's head off to Burger King. And he walks off the field, walks away from the lighted field, and takes his friends, and they all get in the car and they drive down to Burger King. So where's the miracle in that, right? They walked away and they went to Burger King right before they saw all these miraculous people walk onto the field to play. And that's commonly what happens with digital efforts. You end up with a brochure in a browser. So first thing you have to do is set some standards of what you want to accomplish and how you're going to accomplish it. So you need to set up an infrastructure where you're going to answer emails, return phone calls, and on every campaign I've ever worked on, our standard was we answered emails and we answered phone calls within 24 hours. This is important, especially in this election season, because we just demonstrated what happens to somebody who treats voters with respect as opposed to someone who treats voters with contempt. We saw what the deplorables did. We saw who they voted for, and what it basically boils down to from a campaign standpoint is that if you treat everyone who contacts the campaign with respect, people are going to respond, and there's no question that this really works. So treat these people who send you a casual email or just leave a phone call, leave a voicemail, return those calls, answer those emails within 24 hours. Even if it's a crank, even if it's a crazy, even if they're disrespectful, give them a respectful answer within 24 hours. Be ready to provide training, encouragement, and permission to use your website. What a lot of people don't realize is you may furnish these controls here that I was showing you a minute ago over here on the right-hand side of the page. You may furnish all these controls where somebody can go in and edit a page, or they can go into the control panel, or they can click on the Facebook icon to share, or click on the Twitter icon to tweet. There's a small percentage of people who will do that uninvited, but you increase your participation in those activities by an order of magnitude by giving people encouragement, permission, and training to click those buttons, okay? You want to have a gathering of the minds, and we'll come back to this, how to gather those minds together. You want to service the herd mentality. In other words, people who want to work together, people who want to be packed into a small room with 20 chairs and tables and work the phone banks together. You know, you want to service the herd mentality. And also separately, but maybe in the same operation, you also want to service the mavericks who kind of want to work alone. They want to go out and walk the precinct by themselves, or they want to they just want to sit at home on their computer and click the social media links and tweet about your candidate or post to Facebook about your county party and the county party events you may have. You want to communicate. You want to communicate priorities either through your Google group or on the webinar conference calls that we're going to come back to in a minute. And so all of these reasons that I just gave you above is why you have to turn the crank. That is, in effect, turning the crank. So let's move on to the next slide here. So we're going to talk about turning the crank because that's the key to this whole thing. It's what I call turning the crank. And when I talk to candidates, this is how I put it. And turning the crank is the most important thing. You can put a Ferrari in the driveway, but if the operator thinks I have to hook up a team of horses to this Ferrari to make it go, then you're not really turning the crank. You have to understand the tool you've got and then put people to work. So first of all, as you start with video conference calls and in Google groups and so forth, please, please, please stress leadership with your people. Acknowledge that they are already leaders just by being on the conference call, just by being a member of the Google group if you're communicating through that channel. Recognize immediately that they are already leaders just by being there. You're not just being complimentary. When you do that, you're actually recognizing a reality. So stress that they are already in a leadership position. Thank them for that. Without putting too fine a point on it, give them some leadership training as they go along. Work it into the nooks and crannies and crevices of whatever else you're discussing, but acknowledge their leadership. And most of all, as time goes by, let them know that you expect leadership from them. And sometimes the answer to a question, somebody's in a certain situation, they're not getting the response that they're expecting. Tell them, hey, can you up your leadership a little bit and you can make this happen, but it's going to require that you put a little bit more leadership mindset into it. There are ways to convey that without being offensive or without hurting their feelings or making them mad. So if you're looking at a situation with, no results, no emails, no phone calls to return, and no donations, you're not turning the crank, okay? Craft your volunteer emails oh so carefully. A lot of people think, and I have this problem too, when I sit down to write, I can write a donation email, I can slap one together in 10 minutes. And I've done some donation emails that got amazing results. Volunteer emails are a little bit different, and they're harder to write because you're not asking for somebody to, just give up $5 or $50 or $500 and check out through the credit card interface on the website, and they donate their money and they're gone. Crafting a volunteer email has to be done so carefully. So a couple of things that I would suggest about crafting volunteer emails is don't try to slam one out. Think carefully about what you're doing when you're crafting a volunteer email, and thank people for the actions that they've already taken. Recognize their leadership. And I sent one out yesterday where I flat said, your personal leadership caused this to happen. And I think that's a good place to start. Acknowledge what they're already doing, or acknowledge their attitude, or acknowledge something that they're doing that you know is helping the campaign. Craft those volunteer and ask for action. Never send a volunteer email out that's not asking for answers. Find hosts to host your events and guide them to your host an event button on your website, and people to find hosts. You can have volunteers or interns, and I'm going to talk more about interns in just a minute. You can have volunteers and interns whose primary job is just to go out and find people who are willing to host events. And those people can be very, very, very productive to you, and you can provide them resources in the volunteer office of the website to help those people. And if you set it up properly, those host finders, when they find hosts, they can get social media points, so they go up the scale on the leaderboard. And it's just one very inexpensive way of acknowledging their achievement, acknowledging their leadership, and letting them help the campaign in the fashion that they're working to. Whenever you're helping a new worker that's getting familiar with the website, who's either asking questions in the Google group or asking questions on the conference calls, on the webinars that you'll be putting on, do stress the social media to the new workers and ask them, please, 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 once or twice a week, I really would appreciate it if you would, come into the volunteer office, the online volunteer office, and click these social media buttons once or twice a week, and be sure to do that. So that will make you continue to climb up on the leaderboard, and we really need you to do it anyway. So be sure and stress that with new workers. Now again, I'm going to recommend that we take advantage of a video conference call or webinars. The reason I like video conference calls is you can see it on the screen in front of you right now. I can do a video presentation. I can do a slide presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. I hope I'm not PowerPointing you all to death. But we can do a PowerPoint presentation. We can show examples from websites on the screen. If you're actually teaching somebody how to log into a website, into your campaign website or your county party website, it's absolutely essential that you be able to show them how to do that right on the screen once you've built those tools for them. So those are all important considerations. Let me stop again and ask if there's any questions. Dan, I see you're on the call. Thank you so much for being here. Nellie, I see you're back. Thank you for being back here, Nellie. Does anybody have any questions? Well, that concludes our presentation on how to set up and turn the crank. I'll review just a little bit here. The first thing you need to do when you're setting up digital operations for a campaign or ongoing political operations for a county party is, you've got to have the website, and it's got to be a pretty decent website. You've got to have the what I call the amenities and the tools. You've got to have a website that's attractive looking. It's easy to navigate. You can find the donate button okay. You can find the submit my email address control okay. Most websites do a pretty doggone good job of that. But if you're expecting to get more from digital activism, then you're going to have to supply some tools as well for your digital activist. And it only takes a couple of days for somebody familiar with the process to build out the tools, and lots of platforms like Nation Builder and NetBoots and Aristotle provide a lot of these tools simply ready to deploy. All you have to do is drag them and drop them onto the website, and they're ready. They're pretty much ready to go. With WordPress, it's considerably more work. You need a more workaholic digital manager, but you can still do that with WordPress if you're stuck on a WordPress site and you don't have the you don't have the ability to manage. However, even if you provide all the amenities and tools, you still need to turn the crank. And turning the crank means you have to send out the many emails asking for volunteers. This is alongside the emails asking for donations that the candidate wants. And there's a lot of candidates who don't understand how you need to develop a ground game. And to get those volunteers out in the field and get people talking and the street buzz going on the candidate, you've got to get that ground game going. And the best way to supervise a digital and ground game volunteer force is through your website and through the volunteer tools that you put up on your website. Yes, the street people will use them less, the digital people will use them more, but even your precinct captains and your county chairs and everybody who's involved out there in the street is going to learn pretty quickly, hey, you know, I'm kind of out of the loop and I'm not getting all the leadership information I need if I'm not plugged in on the volunteer office on the web page. Okay, so that's part of turning the crank, the volunteer emails. But I think one of the things I want to stress is that video conference call that we were talking about, because that enables you to train, that enables you to communicate priorities to all your people, and you get your training, your priorities, your discussions about techniques, communications, everything like that. A lot of it can be done through the Google group I was talking about earlier. Of course, you definitely want to have Google Drive so you can share documents. You know, there's always somebody on the team, or maybe even a couple or three people on the team, who want to spend their time writing strategic plans and stuff like that, and they're going to put together a 45-page PDF document, you know, that talks about strategic planning and everything like that. And they don't seem to realize, hey, you know, the strategic plan was written months ago. We're operating this strategic plan right now, you know. But the thing is if you give them a Google Drive space to, you know, post their 45-page plan, there's a good chance you're going to draw them into, by being respectful and, you know, not immediately regarding the person as a crank, you're going to draw some of those people in and get them involved in volunteer work that's really valuable to you. And sometimes those people are good leaders, and they'll be able to manage a district team of 10 precincts or 8 precincts that really does good for your campaign. So by furnishing the workspace, you're going a long ways toward engaging the people that already have the skills that you need. They may not present with the skills that you need, but you can sometimes turn them and get them oriented toward the activities that you need. But certainly, you know, what you're avoiding by turning the crank is building that field of dreams and then deciding, okay, you know, now the ballpark's all built, the lights are on, the gypsum lines are on the field, you know, and you can see that the tops of the corn starting to wave back there. It looks like somebody's walking to the field. You know, now's not the time to go to Burger King, you know. Wait and let the people walk out on the field and take advantage of their presence, you know. So that's what I mean by turning the crank. Don't walk away from that field of dreams just as you finished building it. You got to stay engaged and develop your workforce so they can provide some good for the campaign. Let's see here. One more time, I'll ask if there's any questions. If there's no questions, we're going to go ahead and close the call just a little bit early because my presentation was a little shorter than I thought. Any questions at all from anyone on the call? Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank everyone who attended. This is developing into a really wonderful call. I'm getting some good email and good feedback from people. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, we're gonna sort of branch this call out, and we're always going to talk about Nation Builder. And you know, even though we were talking about digital platforms on all platforms tonight, you know, every example that we presented was from Nation Builder. this is by request. I have gotten several people say, you know, yeah, we're using Nation Builder, but we'd also like some more just general ideas about how to run a digital campaign that may not necessarily relate to Nation Builder itself. So I think that's a good idea, and we're going to try to branch out. So if you know a county chair or a webmaster for a county GOP operation, or somebody who's trying to advance the digital game for a given campaign, but they're not using Nation Builder, go ahead and invite them on this call anyway, because we're definitely going to be branching out and giving out knowledge and techniques that are valuable to everyone who's trying to do digital campaigning, not just the Nation Builder users. Of course, you know from talking to me that I've got my own personal loyalties to Nation Builder. We're always going to be talking specifically about Nation Builder at points, and we'll always be able to stress, yeah, we're kind of believers in Nation Builder, but the fact is there's real value in helping the people that aren't able to deploy Nation Builder at this time. They may be stuck they may be stuck, because with a WordPress site, because hey, that's what the county chair wants. You can still have a good digital operation anyway, regardless. So with that, I'll thank everybody who was on the call tonight. Thank you so much. As always, our calls are every Thursday night, 6 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Central, and 9 o'clock Eastern. I think I got that right. I want to thank everybody for being on the call. Thank you so much. Again, you're welcome. My email address and telephone number are on the homepage for this call. You're welcome to call me or email me. Let me know what we can do to serve you with future lessons or future focuses of our training in the future. So, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much.